one big issue that we have with modern day society is medical misdiagnosis. Medical misdiagnosis is huge. And the reason why we have it is because, well, one, there's always more to learn. A lot of people think we already know everything. A lot of doctors think, I went to school, I know everything. But science is always evolving. And that's the problem, is a lot of doctors don't realize, like, their patient might have a unique condition that you might not have learned about in school. Or what school taught you might have been incorrect. And so if you have a big ego, don't become a doctor, because a lot of doctors would try to argue with their patients. Like, your patient might be coming in with a life-threatening disease, and a lot of times the doctor will be like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. This happened to me, and I had to keep begging them for blood tests. And then my blood test came back, and they're like, oh, you have Lyme's. Oh, you might have Crohn's. And I'm like, I knew I had something. But they didn't believe me at first because, I don't know if it's because I look young or if it's what it is, but they didn't believe me. And they thought, oh, you're fine. It's not that big of a deal, That's what I was told at first, and I had to keep pushing them for blood tests to finally start to get a better idea of what's going on. And the problem with the blood test these days is the reference ranges are compared to the average population, but the average population is unhealthy and sick. And so we shouldn't have reference ranges in our blood tests that are compared to the average population. We should have reference ranges based on what's optimal for our health. And so that's a huge problem with modern day blood testing, is the reference ranges aren't based on what's optimal for health, but they're based on what's average for the population. And so there's a lot of issues with the medical industry, and I'm not trashing doctors. A good doctor can save lives. But what I'm saying is, just like every profession, there's good police officers and there's bad police officers. There's good doctors and there's bad doctors. There's good parents and there's bad parents. You see what I'm saying? And so it's up to you to find a good doctor. But even if your doctor's good, they might not be perfect. They might still make mistakes. And so even if you have a good doctor, you as the patient, you have to advocate for yourself. I had to advocate for myself. No, there is something wrong. Let me get blood tests. I got the blood test. It came back a certain way. So you as the patient have to be willing to advocate for yourself. And so that's a big issue, is a lot of doctors are overly confident because they think, oh, I went to school. And if you are that way of thinking, you shouldn't be a doctor. You shouldn't be a police officer. You shouldn't be a dentist. You shouldn't be in any high-paying, important job that society needs, because you might end up harming a lot of people. You might even end up killing a lot of people due to ignorance. And that's the thing, is one of the most important characteristics, in my opinion, for a doctor, a nurse, a dentist, a police officer, any of those people, is humility and empathy. A lot of these people in these higher paying, more super important jobs in society, they have egos about it. They think, oh, I know everything because I'm a doctor and I went to school. And if that's you, you shouldn't be a doctor. You shouldn't be a nurse. You shouldn't be a dentist. You shouldn't be in healthcare or policing, or you shouldn't be the president or whatever, if you have an ego and if you're not humble, because there's always more to learn. There's always more to grow. It doesn't matter if we live in the most modern, advanced, technologically advanced era of all time. Every single time period when they were around, that was the most technologically advanced time period that they lived in, because that was the present moment for them. Back in the 1800s, when they used to do all these crazy things that we'd never even think about doing now in the name of healthcare, like bloodletting. I don't know if they did bloodletting in the 1800s, where they would cut someone and drain the blood to get rid of the disease. All sorts of weird stuff. Even if someone had just the flu or whatever, I heard they used to cut people and drain the blood to get rid of the virus when they had the flu and stuff like that. They used to think that that was the way to do it. And back when they lived in the 1700s or whenever they practiced that, that was the most advanced time period for them. They're like, oh, we have guns now. We just invented muskets. We just invented agriculture. We're the most advanced humans ever in history. And they probably thought that they knew a lot back then. And then just compare that to now. So imagine where we could be in 100 years if we keep evolving. Imagine where we could be in 1,000 years if we keep evolving. And I think people need to realize that there's always more to grow. There's always more to learn. There's always room to get better. And so as a doctor, as a nurse, as a dentist, a lot of dentists don't even know that you can remineralize your teeth. There's a book, I think it's called, let me look up the title so I don't get it wrong for you guys. There's a book, it's called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, where Western A. Price actually goes into how to regenerate your teeth and stuff like that. A lot of doctors a lot of dentists don't even know that it's possible to remineralize your teeth. You can actually heal cavities naturally. A lot of dentists don't know that. They tell you when you have a cavity, you got to drill it and fill it. They don't talk about nutrition. They don't talk about lifestyle. They don't talk about gut health. Did you know your gut health can affect your teeth? Because it can affect your body's ability to absorb minerals. Your gut microbiome can affect your teeth because it can affect your body's ability to absorb minerals. A lot of dentists don't know this. And there's a book called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration with X-ray proof that you can regenerate your teeth. I even have an interview on my YouTube channel, this channel. It's one of my most popular videos. And I interview someone that I met that literally regrew their teeth. They were missing like half of their tooth on both sides of their mouth, and they regrew it and they healed it. And so a lot of dentists don't realize you can heal your teeth. A lot of doctors don't realize that there's more than one way to heal diseases. They want to give everyone antibiotics, which can destroy your gut microbiome, when there's actually a lot of natural ways of healing things. And so I'm not saying that I have to be careful what I say on YouTube, right? Because there's certain guidelines, right? And so I'm not saying that you shouldn't listen to your doctor and take what they have to say in consideration. And I'm not saying that doctors aren't right sometimes. But what I am saying is that they're not always right. And there's good doctors and bad doctors. And some people are better at their jobs than other people. And so as the patient, you have to advocate for yourself, and you have to do your own research, and you have to come to your own conclusions. Because a lot of these things that people think are just harmless and, oh, it's just treatment, it's just what you're supposed to do. These things can have side effects that can potentially cause permanent damage, even death. And so we have to realize as a society that there's always more to learn, and there's more than one ways of doing things. And we need to be more open-minded as a society. A lot of things are illegal, like natural medicines, like cannabis, like opium, like mushrooms. And these things are actually safer and more effective than a lot of conventional treatments for certain people in certain cases. Okay? And so it's almost like they're trying to take away our ability as a society to create our own medicine. You can just grow your own cannabis at home. So why is it federally illegal? You can just grow your own opium poppies at home. You can just grow your own kratom. You can just grow your own mushrooms. So why is it illegal? And then they say opium is bad, yet Tylenol is sold over the counter at every drugstore, but Tylenol can cause liver failure. Yet opium actually has a lot of health benefits, believe it or not. Now, I'm not saying there aren't risks to it. There's risks to everything. If you drink too much water, You can overhydrate, and you can actually die if you drink too much water. Anything in excess can be detrimental. But what I'm saying is, if you look it up, opium has a lot of benefits. It can help with a lot of people think opium's just this dangerous, addictive drug that's bad for you, and that's not true. There's a lot of benefits to it. It can promote neurogenesis. It can help promote wound healing. It can help promote lymphogenesis. There's a lot, because it can help balance out your serotonin and dopamine systems. That's why it can give you a euphoria. So it can actually help some people in the case of treatment-resistant depression. And again, I have to be careful with what I say on YouTube because there is guidelines. But what I am saying is a lot of these natural treatments that actually work really well, that you can actually grow some of these plants at home, are federally illegal. And so it makes me think a lot of people in the medical industry, unfortunately, are corrupted. I'm not saying everyone, but a lot of people are corrupted. And a lot of people in the FDA and the DEA care more about profit than they do about saving people's lives. And a lot of people in the FDA and DEA, they'd rather see you die. Let's say maybe you have a disease in it, like you have seizures, and you could use cannabis to naturally treat it. They'd rather have you die and keep it Schedule 1 just to keep their own systems going than to legalize everything and let you grow it yourself, because then they wouldn't profit off of it. And so you have to keep in mind, like, one of the most important characteristics in a doctor or a dentist or a police officer or anyone in a high level position, a president, a senator, is humility. And a wise man knows that they know nothing, because there's always more to learn. So if someone thinks they know everything and they're not willing to listen to the patient, they're not willing to listen to the citizen, let's say they're a president or a senator, they're not willing to listen to the average citizen, or if your doctor's not willing to listen to you and they try to talk over you and they try to say that you're wrong because they went to school, then that's not a good doctor. One of the most important characteristics of someone that's good at their job, especially like someone that's there to serve the people, like a doctor is supposed to help serve the sick people and help them get healthy. A police officer is supposed to help serve and protect the public. A president is supposed to help serve their country. One of the most important characteristics of a public servant, and these people in these high-level positions are supposed to be public servants. That's what they're supposed to be. That's why they get paid so well, because they're supposed to help people, is someone who has good listening ability. And unfortunately, a lot of times, the more education people get, the worse of a listener they are, because they get an ego about it. They think, oh, I went to school for 8 years, so I know everything. It can take many, 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 many lifetimes to learn something and to master it. And so in 100 years, you might not be able to learn even enough about health to even heal 10% of people. And that's not to say that we shouldn't have doctors, even if they only have 8 years of education. If you can even save 1 out of 100 patients, that's still a good thing. But what I'm saying is, like, 8 years of school is nothing compared to, look at how much society changes every 1,000 years. You know, we invent new technologies, we invent new medicines, we invent new ways of doing things. And so, you know, you got to understand that you are your own doctor as the patient. Because you're the one that's living your life. You're the one that's eating the food that you're eating every day. You're the one that's getting the sunlight that you're getting every day, or a lack thereof. You're the one that's getting the rest that you need every day, or a lack thereof. You're the one that's exercising every day, or maybe you're not exercising as much as you should. You're the one that's supposed to take care of yourself every day. And so you are your own doctor, number one. But if you do need a professional doctor, maybe to give you blood tests, maybe to help prescribe you something, it's important to look for a doctor that has a strong listening ability and that has no ego and that's very humble and always willing to learn more. Because if your doctor is rigid, if your doctor is closed-minded, if your doctor thinks they know everything and they're not listening to what you're saying about your body, they might misdiagnose you due to their ego and due to their inability to listen to you and due to the fact that they think they know everything just because they went to school for 8 years. And medical misdiagnosis is one of the number one causes of death in America. And so we need a better healthcare system. We need a better government. We need a better police force. A lot of these people in these important jobs, they're there to serve the public. And serving the public should always be number one over your ego. And we have to understand that there's always room for improvement. There's always room for growth. There's always room to do better. And we need to understand that as a society, just because someone went to school, it doesn't mean they're smarter than the average person. And if every dentist, if every police officer, if every doctor, if every president, if every senator realized that and humbled themselves, we would live in a much better world. Because the amount of misdiagnoses, the amount of innocent people getting arrested, the amount of people going to the dentist getting teeth pulled when they don't have to, the amount of people going to the doctor that get prescribed the wrong medicine because the doctor's not listening to the patient and what the patient needs and the doctor thinks they know everything. It's an astoundingly high rate. And we as a society need to realize that there's always room for improvement and there's always room for growth. And you have to remember that you as the individual, you are your number one doctor. You are your number one dentist. You are your number one crime solver. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times when you call the police during a crime, they won't even solve it for you half of the time. They're more than happy to give someone a traffic ticket for no reason. A lot of the traffic tickets I've gotten have been dismissed in court because the police officer had no evidence that I was actually committing said infraction. They're more than happy to give an innocent person a traffic ticket, but when you call them during a real crime, half of the time they won't even show up. And so we have to advocate for ourselves, That's why we're supposed to have freedom in America. But a lot of times our freedoms are being taken away. Like I said, they're taking healing plants like cannabis and making it a Schedule I drug. They're taking healing plants like opium and making it a Schedule I drug. Meanwhile, you can buy Tylenol in every single pharmacy across America, yet Tylenol can cause liver failure and even death. So we have to realize as a people that they're taking a lot of our freedoms away, like to grow our own medicine and stuff like that. And we need those freedoms because sometimes the doctor doesn't know what's wrong with you. Sometimes the police officer does abuse their power. That's why we have the right to bear arms. The Second Amendment is so we can protect ourselves against the corrupt government. We need to take our freedoms more seriously as a people, and we need to stand up for our rights and freedoms and not let tyranny steamroll over our basic human rights and our basic human freedoms. And a lot of those include medical freedom, like our ability to, grow our own medicine. You know what I'm saying? And these are all basic human rights and basic human freedoms that sometimes corrupt, evil people try to take away from us. And we can't allow that because that's not okay. Innocent people are dying every day due to medical misdiagnosis. Innocent people are dying all the time due to, corrupt police officers. It's sad, but it's happened before. There's body cam footage on YouTube. You can look it up. Innocent people die due to dentistry malpractice. And so educate yourself, protect yourself, be your number one advocate at all times. Be your number one doctor, be your own number one dentist, be your own lawyer, be your own, be your own advocate and advocate for yourself, because a lot of these people in positions of power abuse their authority, unfortunately. And I'm not saying it's all of them. Shout out to the good doctors, shout out to the good dentists, shout out to the good police officers, but it's a lot of them, unfortunately. And this society is very corrupt and it needs to be fixed. But it all starts with the individual. If we all individually stood up for our freedom, the government couldn't do anything about it. If we all stood up for our right to grow our own cannabis, if we all stood up for our right to grow our own medicine, if we all stood up for our right to bear arms, if we all stood up for our right to, advocate for ourselves, and I'm not saying everyone should have the right to bear arms. Maybe we need to have certain mental health evaluations and things like that. And I understand if someone's committed a crime before, maybe they like murder or something, maybe they shouldn't be allowed to bear arms. But I'm saying the average, healthy, mentally stable civilian, and, we need to stand up for our rights to grow our own medicine. We need to stand up for our rights to, be free. And to understand that our health is our responsibility. If we all individually took responsibility for our health, like we made sure our farmers were growing organic food, like 80% of the grocery store these days is poison. How is a doctor going to fix that? They can't. It starts with the farmer. I'm not saying doctors aren't important, but we need to understand the role that the farmer plays in our health as well. We need to understand the role that the soil plays in our health as well. We need to be taking preventative measures, not just to wait until you have the disease and then go see the doctor, but try to prevent the disease to begin with. Try to raise healthier children as well. These are all important things that we need to be doing. And so this video's been going on for a while now. I don't want it to be too long. I want it to be nice and digestible for those watching it. So I hope you enjoyed. I don't know if this video is more of a rant or more of an educational video. I'm not sure what kind of video it is exactly, but I just wanted to get this message out there because I thought it was a very important message. I've made a lot of videos like this on my channel already, but sometimes I think it's good to repeat the same points over and over again because these are very prevalent issues in today's society. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys think. Comment below. Thanks for tuning in. I love you guys. And until next one, I'm out. Peace.